Please tell me you're not doing a stupid podcast or something.
Hello, and welcome to Aces and Brills, a Dead Boy Detectives podcast. I am your co-host, Ness.
And I'm your co-host, Laney.
And this podcast episode will be about episode 1 of Dead Boy Detectives, The Case of Crystal Palace.
Before we start, Ness and I would both like to come out with a little boundary setting. Just for, this week has been really hectic for all of us in many different ways. It's been really cool. We've got a lot of new people who have followed the podcast on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube. Thank you so much for that. But we'd also like to say that right now, this podcast is very much a fan project between Ness and I, and we would really appreciate it if maybe people don't go out and actively try to share this with the cast and crew of Dead Boy Detectives. Again, this is a fan project, and this is something Ness and I do kind of for fun. And yeah, that's basically it. Just be respectful. This is by fans, for fans, making sure everyone here has a good time. And if the cast finds it, they find it. If the crew finds it, they find it. But just don't go actively sliding into the DMs, looking for them to find the podcast, just so you guys can get more content with them. Because that's not something we want to do. And we hope that you guys understand that.
Actually, on that subject, because it is a fan podcast, we are actively looking for artists and graphic designers who want to collaborate. We can't commission an artist to make artwork for us, so if someone is willing to collaborate for free and just for fun, then we are completely open to that, and we would love to work with you.
In the future, we would like to commission artists. It's just at this moment, we cannot.
So, episode 1, The Case of Crystal Palace.
I will say that this episode is probably one of my favorites. It's so fun.
I didn't realise it, but when I got into Dead Boy Detectives, it was on the day that it released, and I had time to spare because I didn't have any uni lectures that day, and I just went, Dead Boy Detectives, it's in the Sandman universe, and I've heard some people compare it to Lockwood and Co. So let me just try it. And then within the first 5 minutes, I was hooked. It was ridiculous.
Same. I got into it a little bit late, about, I'd say, a week or two late, which pretty good by my standards as someone who doesn't like to watch new things. But I went to a doctor's appointment for my fun chronic disease, came back, got really bored, saw Dead Boy Detectives, was like, this looks like something I'd be interested in, clicked on it, immediately fell in love as soon as Charles face planted on the floor.
I think the first moment that I really like from the episode is the Minor Arcana volume line, where it's like you have an infinite backpack that could hold so many things, and then you forgot this one book, and I'm like, I like these two characters, I love their dynamic.
Yes.
What also is very good from a film student's point of view, because I am a film student, unfortunately, is the opening sequence is quite literally something that is art for me.
I feel like it is just art. It's just art in its purest form. It is masterful. The dance, the skeletons are really fun. Everything being all psychedelic and colorful is really cool. It really portrays this sort of spooky yet playful vibe that kind of Dead Boy Detectives encompasses. It gives a sort of, this is a supernatural show, this is about death, but also this is about two dumbass teenage boys. So let's roll. Let's rock and roll.
I just love the intro. But one of the main things that people wanted us to talk about and people would like to see discussed is the death cameo by the lovely Kirby.
Oh my god, I love the death cameo. As someone who's never seen Sandman, I recognize Kirby from The Good Place. I think that's what she was on The Good Place for a while, it's 2 seasons. And I absolutely loved her in it, and when I saw Kirby, I was like, "Oh my god, I recognize that woman. She's great." No, my dad watched the first episode with me, and he's like, "Is this part of the Sandman?" And I was like, "Yes, yes, it is. I think so. I've never seen the Sandman." He's like, "And you're watching this?" And I was like, "Yes, shut up. Leave me alone." But no, I love it. And I really want to talk about personally, as a nerd, the Kipling poem that Death quotes to the soldier, and I do want to talk about the soldier later because that's also something that people wanted to hear. It is the it's the 18 ooh, let's see, when did this publish? 1892 poem by Kipling, The Sack of the Gods, which is a really nice poem actually. They only use the end two lines, but it's a really good poem.
Well, the 2 lines for people listening out there is they will come back again, as long as the red earth rolls. He never wasted a leaf or a tree. Do you think he would squander souls? That's the 2 lines.
Yeah, the poem is about a guy and like the woman he loves, and it's very much about like gods. Valhalla makes multiple appearances. It's very much, it's a good poem. Look it up. There's the kiplingsociety.co.uk keeps all of his poems in a collection. Read it. It's really interesting.
But yeah, just the cameo by Kirby for Death, and considering the fact that that was one of like the last, well, not the last scenes, but they said that they filmed it close to the end of filming because they didn't realize until the end of, oh, it's going to be on Netflix,
Yeah.
which is just insane. But I am so glad that they had it. And
100%.
then from that scene, you also have the hanging off the side of the
I
building
wanna
scene.
talk about that so bad, but, like, for a specific reason is that, like, regardless of whether or not they filmed it late because they realized it was gonna be on Netflix, it is actually wild how, Edwin and Charles both thought that hanging off the side of the building and not booking it at least to the other end of London was gonna make Death just simply realize they're not there. Like, they were 2 feet away from her, and they were like, "We're good. We're fine. We're hidden." Oh my god. But also it's true.
She
Yeah, she
knows.
100% knows that they're there, and she's just letting them live their life. But I feel like that juxtaposes, the comic where, and I wanna
Yeah.
talk about this more in when we talk about Lighthouse Sleepers. I really wanna talk about the difference between that and the comic, because in the comic, Death did come for Charles, and Charles annoyed her away.
Yeah.
He was like, "I don't wanna go." And Death was like, "You gotta go." And he was like, "But I have a friend." And then she was like, "Dude, I don't have time for you. Come with me or I'm leaving." And he's like, "Leave." And then she did. She was like, "I have more important things to be doing than arguing with a 13-year-old boy."
I think another like reference to the comics as well is that in the comics Charles and Edwin have the same killers. Like the ghosts of the boys or the spirits of the boys who killed Edwin are those who killed Charles in the comics, and it just, when I read that for the first time I was like, Jesus
Trauma
Christ.
bonding, trauma bonding.
Yeah.
I will say I like that they made the change in the show, not because
Mhm.
it's not because, like, they thought it was gonna be different, it was gonna be connected more to Doom Patrol, but I like that it was changed because their ages were changed too, and it's much more interesting to have it, like, be sort of disconnected to the Sandman in a way. Because with the whole, like,
Yeah.
letting the spirits out of hell thing that I think Morpheus does, because let's be honest, what doesn't Morpheus do in The Sandman?
Well,
Um,
I think it's Lucifer
is it Lucifer?
who just leaves
Dude,
hell.
I don't know, I've
Yeah,
never
Lucifer just
seen
leaves hell and leaves the door open.
The Sandman.
It's in the
It's in
comics. It's not.
I've never read the comics either. I need to do it. I swear to God, I need to do it.
Yeah. So in the Sandman comics, right before the first ever appearance of Dead Boy Detectives, Lucifer just leaves Hell. They leave the key with Dream.
Oh,
And Dream just goes, okay. But because because Lucifer leaves Hell, they leave the door open. So all the spirits who are in Hell walk through the door just because they can.
oh my.
And that's how Charles Rowland dies, because of Lucifer. So, and that's in the comics. Anyways, back to episode 1. I have to say that, yes, the editing in this entire episode is amazing, but the editing for the domestic scene and the boxing scene, I just love. Because and also the costuming in the domestic scene. I think we've nicknamed it the domestic scene
Yeah.
now.
I will say about the costuming, there was an
Mm-hmm.
interview somewhere, don't quote me on this, but there was something somewhere where someone said that, I think someone who was a part of the show said that the office is the boys' safe place, which is why they can, like,
Yeah.
they kind of, like, undress a little more, they are more relaxed, they're not as
Mhm.
buttoned up and proper as they are in, we'll see in Port Townsend, which is really interesting. And I also
Yeah.
want to talk about, like, the boxing scene and what that means for their characters. Because while, like, the whole case, the case scene with the soldier really establishes who they are in a crisis, who they are in their downtime is also, like, really important. Especially how they care for each other and, like, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, because I just love the dialogue, because Charles gives an example where it's someone else in danger and Edwin has to protect that person. And it's really interesting that Charles doesn't use Edwin as an example of, oh, when you're in a situation where you need to fight someone because you're in danger. He completely disregards that and says, oh, when a client of ours is in danger, because he knows that if Edwin was in danger, he would sacrifice himself, because that's the type of person Edwin is.
Yeah.
And that it is amazing that you can already see that dynamic and the fact that they have known each other for 30 years just within like these small little dialogue. I just love it.
Yeah, I find what's also interesting is that Edwin says that, like, he's really confused. He's like, when do I need to hit anyone? I've been dead since 1916, which is also very interesting in how they talk about their deaths in this episode,
Yeah.
because Edwin doesn't say that he doesn't need to fight people since he's been dead for over so and so amount of years. He uses a specific year, which makes me think that, and
Yeah.
also when they're talking to the little creepy Victorian girl, they say, supernaturally speaking,
Emma.
you're older than us.
Mhm.
Which is really
Yeah.
interesting that they like to like skirt around the topic of like how long it's been, how old they are, except when they're talking about their own friendship, in which they've been like, we've been friends for 30 years. We've been friends for ages.
Mhm.
We've been together since 1989. And I feel like that has something to do with the fact that both of them kind of are stuck in, like, they're kind of stuck in place, and they don't wanna
Yeah.
think about how the world is moving on without them, and how, like, each year they're more and more forgotten, if Edwin has not been forgotten already, let's be for real. Anyways, let's talk about the disguises.
Okay. This when I first watched this episode, like my
You
first ever
thought it was the
watch,
clown?
I was like, I thought it was the clowns. I thought it was the clowns. I'm
Same,
that
same.
obvious. But it's really funny because they're like, oh, well, let's get the disguises, and then it does a match cut edit to the clowns, so you think it's gonna be the clowns, and then they walk away.
I started cackling when I saw it was the clowns because I was like, Charles Roland, you were subtle as shit.
Yes.
And I was like, this is the worst disguises ever. You can tell you're teenage boys because you are ineffective as hell. Like if this was a group project, I'd say absolutely not. I'd rather wear a fake mustache.
But the thing is, it's like they smirk at each other, like in that line of like, oh, let's
Yeah.
get the disguises. So I'm like, oh, it's a joke. Like, oh, they're the clowns. And then the clowns just leave.
Yeah, no, and then it's like the old couple, which I love that they both look like an old married couple,
I know.
especially like because Charles is the one that chose the disguises. I think that's been pretty well established.
Yeah.
So it was him who got to decide what they look like, and his first thought when he saw disguises was old married couple.
hmm
That's great.
Old married couple who looks like they've been together for 30 years.
Yes, exactly. You know, when I like if it wasn't the clowns, I 100% was looking for like other teenagers in like
hmm
in like the background to see if there was other
Yeah.
people there. And I wasn't looking at the middle-aged couple in the slightest that were sitting like kind of away from each other because I thought
hmm
instinctually that Charles and Edwin would gravitate towards more like, I wanna say, quote, unquote, "age appropriate" disguises
Yeah.
rather than adult disguises, but also there's the thing where
They're
people don't.
souls themselves. Like, it's like you can call them old souls because they are old souls.
That's true,
Like,
but also in the context of their cases, who's gonna take a 16-year-old seriously?
mhm. Yeah, but then at the same time, it's like Charles himself is still mentally 16 years old,
So was Edwin,
but
'cause
he is
neither of
yeah,
them had their frontal cortexes develop.
but then at the same time, they Charles himself has been, like, present for 46 years. He has 46 years of experience of life and afterlife combined, but he still is that 16-year-old boy talking about Charles and Edwin's dynamic and how it does change for the introduction of Crystal.
Yeah.
Because I am going to reference the comics,
That's
but
the theme
in
of today. It's just us references of
yeah,
comics. At this point, we're a comics podcast. The show, screw the show. This is a joke. That's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. I should preface that it's a joke.
in the comics, I think in my omnibus version of it, I think it's like I don't know what it shows. But the first ever thing I read of Dead Boy Detectives that wasn't in the Sandman is this part in the comic where they rescue someone's cat.
Oh yeah, that was the first
Um,
case, wasn't it?
yeah, they rescue someone's cat. They're in the treehouse. Um, but Edwin is like completely just pissed off with Charles because Charles is like, "Oh, let's go rescue this cat for her." Tucks hair behind ear, um, and
Yeah.
Edwin is just like not buying it whatsoever. That case that's in the comics and that dynamic that they have immediately through the first case that I ever like read in the comics, Charles and Edwin's dynamic was there. And when
Yeah.
you watch the first episode of Dead Boy Detectives, it's there. You know they have been friends for 30 years. And the fact that Crystal is this new character and Charles immediately welcomes her with open arms and is like, let's get your memories back. You can stay at our place if you need like a place to stay for the night without even like talking to Edwin.
Especially but also in the comics, Edwin very much calls out the fact that Charles is very easy to fall in love with girls. Like,
Yeah.
he once like, I think there was a panel where on the side, it basically listed all the girls that he's been infatuated with, like, just, like, maybe 3, and then it had their images beside it, and it was legitimately Edwin going, maybe this isn't that important because like look at all the girls like it's her with like the blah 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 da ba da ba ba da ba ba da and it's very
hmm
much it reads exasperated. I will say though that my favorite little thing that they did in the pilot episode
hmm
is and like props to George and Jaden for this, because this is really hard to nail down, especially when you're doing a pilot episode. And I don't know how film works, not like fully, but to go first few weeks of filming and to already have like synchronization down packed, like their turns when they turn towards the door in sync, absolutely amazing. When they both do things, absolutely, like when they run at Crystal to get the demon out, and they'll instantly run, and they know what to do, and they know how to like to work together. Very cool. And they banter like they've been together for a really long time. And the introduction of Crystal kind of like disrupts that,
Yes, definitely.
which is really cool. And, it's like a common plot technique of, establish a status quo, break status quo, plot moves on from there. But if you think about it, the first episode breaks so many status quos that I feel kind of bad for Edwin and Charles, because they go from being comfortable with their friendship, comfortable with their office, to new person has joined in the party, and we're now in a town that is not similar to London at all, and they don't have their office anymore. It's very interesting. Yeah. Well, speaking of Crystal, let's speak about Crystal, because I love Crystal. I'm the biggest Crystal fan ever. I love her so much. She's my favorite
Cassius
character.
Nelson, I love
She
you.
is my favorite. I love her. On Twitter, it literally says on my display name, it says the real Crystal Palace, because I love her so much. It used to say Crystal Palace's girlfriend, but and I'll probably change it to that after this episode comes out. But I love her. I love her so much. I find Crystal's introduction very, very telling of her character. Because 1, she's very confused. 2, she has no memories. 3, she still shows remnants of her like former personality when she's talking to the boys, and she goes, "That's a stupid name," because I find that really fun. She's like still kind of mean, and she's still kind of snippy. She's just, I think, more aware of that now.
Yeah, I think there's the scene where they're walking across the bridge as well, where
Yeah.
it's Charles and Crystal is just insulting him, like straight up.
Yeah, very much. She's tearing into him like I tore into Jaden. That yeah, I feel like Jaden, if you're listening, I don't know if you are. I'm gonna say apologies. Kind of. Mostly apologies. It was fun.
50-50.
Crystal and Charles are very much young love, and they very much fit
Yes.
a like childhood milestone. Like of Crystal is finding like love that in like a non-toxic form for perhaps the first time. And Charles is legitimately finding love for the first time, like one of the first times.
Yeah, that's
Regardless
really
of
sweet.
like whether or not their end game, doesn't matter. What does matter is that they kind of both are, each other's first something, and that's really important. Like they may not be each other's first kisses. They might not be each other's like first true loves, but they're each other's kind of like first, somethings. Like
Yeah.
Charles hasn't really been able to be seen by someone his own age for 30 odd years. And he
Yeah.
loves Edwin, and again, we'll get to that in the episode 7 breakdown. But at the same time, it's kind of like this excitement and this puppy love of seeing a girl that's not only very attractive, but also able to see him, is his age, and is not immediately shutting him down. You know? Like, she doesn't ever shut him down, which is very important. Because she asks, did that work on girls back in the 80s?
Yeah.
She never explicitly says, this is weird, we should stop, I don't like this. both have free agency for consent. Like when Crystal stops, says that they shouldn't be kissing, Charles immediately respects that, withdraws. He knows consent. He knows when to withdraw, when consent has been withdrawn, and he respects that, which is very important and really like super to consider when discussing, the implications of Crystal and Charles together. Also, what we said previously with how they're like both mental, like Edwin and Charles are both mentally 16. That's also important to know, because if it was wrong, and I think if it was wrong, I think the writers would pull back more.
Yeah.
Like the Cat
Definitely.
King 100% is like, we could talk like maybe slightly questionable writing when they say fair and consensual, and then he kisses Monty without consent. But also at the same time, the Cat King's meant to be this iffy little creep creature that's kind
Yeah.
of disgusting, Like the Cat King's
Yeah.
not meant to be a good person.
He's not. But Lucas Gage plays the Cat King excellent. Like
100%. We could talk about that Cat King and Lucas Gage being a phenomenal actor all day. Honestly, we could talk about the
yeah.
entire cast being top tier all day. But I will say that in the context of people saying that Charles and Crystal doesn't work because of the same reasons that the Cat King and Edwin doesn't work, which is, creepy age gap, I'm gonna say that maybe it's more of an exploration of feelings and an exploration of childhood, and what those childhood milestones can look like and what that could mean to other people, than it is like a true, actual, like giant relationship that has a lot of meaning. Like Charles does not have the power to chain Crystal to a city.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say. I don't want to like attack people who ship, Catwin, because like honestly, at the end of the day, ship whoever you want to ship. It's no big deal. But at the same time, if you're going to attack a ship by using another ship, it's important to look at the context of both, and the context of
Definitely.
who both of the characters are in that ship, and the context of how those characters interact with each other in canon, and how, maybe fandom has like misperceived some characters, like 100%. And I do want to talk about Crystal especially as a character in a future episode, because I find it
Yeah.
really interesting who she is, and then how like certain Crystal haters see her to be, and like the problem that arises when a female character, quote unquote, gets in the way of a perceived to be or going to be canon ship, which I feel like Painland is on its way to being.
Definitely. Like I love Crystal as a character.
Yeah.
But obviously she's not one of my favorites. So I am so glad you are here to talk about her.
She is my favorite. I love her so much. I am Crystal Palace in real life. If you need any confirmation that I am Crystal Palace IRL and I love her so, so much, legitimately, there is a clip of Jane saying my name and saying, "Yeah, you're Crystal Palace," and that is, I'm legitimately going to find that clip, and I think someone posted it when the person who does the breakdowns. Oh my god.
Is that James?
Yeah, James. James does the
Yeah.
breakdowns. Love James. Thank you, James. Shout out James.
Thank you, James.
Um, it's the clips, and it's in my bookmarks right now. Where James, you're the real Crystal
Well, the thing
Palace.
is, if you do find it, then we'll put it in the podcast right here.
Yeah, Laney, I think you might be more Crystal Palace than anyone with the bullying.
No, but I love it. And if you need any clarification at all, that like my big 3 favorite characters are Crystal, Charles, Monty. Those are my top 4, top 3. Can't count. Failed math, guys. Sorry.
I think my top 3 is Edwin, Nico. I don't know. Who would be next?
Ooh,
I think it would be Crystal.
Crystal. Ooh, yeah. If I was gonna go top 5, I'd go Crystal, Charles, Monty. Add on Jenny and Esther, because I love Esther. I don't know why. She's such a good villain. She makes me like, I would 100% be okay if she fed me to that snake. Feel free. Oh, she is so incredibly just fun. You know? She
Mhm.
has this air of someone who is, you know, like older, but also like she's very vain in a very like, I don't know, like old Hollywood villainous type way, you know? She
Mhm.
kind of reminds me of if any of you know like Singing in the Rain, like Lena Lamont, like
Mhm.
her, but instead of her being like infatuated with a guy, she was instead a murderous witch who had like a pet crow, smoked a pipe, and wanted to crush the. You know what? She's the lady in Annie. I just realized she is like the lady in Annie. If the lady
Miss
in
Hannigan.
Annie, Miss Hannigan, if
Mhm.
she fed Annie and her friends to the snake. You know what? I feel like if we're gonna talk about Esther, I will have to say that
Uh-huh.
her plan is flawed. She should have started an orphanage for little girls, and that's how she should have done it. I'm just saying,
That is a very good.
Esther, you kind of dropped the ball on that one. Girls have been orphaned for millennia. You could have banked off of that. No one cares about an orphan girl. I'm gonna sound really mean when I say that, but like that's true.
Someone's just gonna clip out of context now.
No, don't make that out of context. No one cares about
Well,
orphans.
I think you already touched on this, but Crystal and David's relationship. And okay, I'm just gonna start off this by saying, what kind of hat was that? Because yes, I can understand. David is attractive. As a lesbian, David is attractive, yes, but not with that bloody hat.
I will say I did not notice a hat when I watched that scene. I need to rewatch that now with everyone memeing on this hat because I genuinely don't remember the hat. And I will say that as a bisexual person, I don't think I would be like David. I'm not going to attack the actor for his looks because that's mean. But I will say that David to me, and I feel like it's just the way that he's played that makes me not
Mhm.
instantly fall in love because, like, again, attractive actor, but it's just the way his personality is that immediately makes him
Yeah.
attractive in my eyes. Like, if I heard the actor and I was like looking across the way, I was like, that would be an attractive guy, you know?
Yeah.
But once he opened his mouth to speak, I wanted to kick him in the face so badly.
Well, that is a testament to David's acting.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
100% a testament to David's acting because oh my god. Um absolutely
Wanna kick his teeth out every time he speaks.
I want to hit him with a baguette, you know? Like give me the bag of tricks backpack right now. You know, Charles, like give it to me. I don't care if my hand gets bitten off by the backpack. I'm gonna take the baguette and I'm going to beat his ass. I don't even care if that sounds mean. Hello, everyone. Just before we like to say our outro, we would like to say that since Ness and I rambled way too damn much talking about this lovely, lovely episode, we will have to split the Case of Crystal Palace into 2 parts. Please catch that next week. And before our outro, we would like to plug our lovely suggestions box that is pinned in our Twitter. If you have any episode suggestions, if you have something you specifically want to talk about, or if you want to ramble about how great our podcast is, please feel free to fill out that form. Thank you so much, and here's our outro.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. Keep streaming Dead Boy Detectives on Netflix. You can follow us on our socials on Twitter and Tumblr, where we are acesandbrills. On Instagram, we are acesandbrills_dbd. And if you are listening to this on YouTube, please like and subscribe to our channel. And if you are listening to this on Spotify, please follow us and give us a rating as it boosts Spotify's engagement. We have been Ness.
And we have been Laney.
And this has been
Aces and Brills,
a Dead Boy
Detectives
Detectives
podcast.
That works.